Bannister Mall is located off of 435 in South Kansas City, where it meets Bannister Road, which is also known as 95th Street, and it's off of Hillcrest. Well, it was. The main reason Bannister Mall was not successful in the long run and ended up shutting down was because a lot of people left the surrounding area in the late 80s. There were more developments going on in Johnson County, which is a neighboring county, as well as eastern Jackson County, just other developments, and they were basically just leaving that area, South Kansas City. South Kansas City grew in crime. I grew up in Ruskin Heights, which is a neighborhood in South Kansas City, and we went to Bannister Mall when I was a kid. I remember being pushed around in a stroller in Bannister Mall. Bannister Mall had little fountains all over the mall. Little brick walls with curved tops held the water in, and they were littered with all coins. Lights shone in the water, and you could see pennies and nickels, dimes and quarters, which was really exciting. I remember being pushed around this mall, the subtle ramps and the glass walls on the second floor, the glass railings, rather, you could see through them down to the first floor, and it was always a little bit scary. They had planters on the outside of the glass, and I always wondered how come some of the planters were empty and you could see right through them, and others had plants in them. And it was just that design, the 1980s design style. As a kid, it didn't make sense to me. Full space, empty space, shapes, squares, circles, geometric juxtapositioning, that kind of thing. Light and dark and shadow. It's all reflected in Bannister Mall's architecture. Cubism, painting come alive almost with mixed with brick. 1980s coloring. Towards the end of Bannister Mall's life, I remember shopping there throughout the years and seeing it start to decline, and all the anchor tenants just faded off. There was like 4 anchors at its height with 180 stores at its height, and in the end it had none. Another thing about Bannister Mall was I'll never forget the smell of the mall. Particularly when you were entering or exiting the mall in the vestibules. It had this thick, musty, rubbery doormat smell to it. And I don't know if it had to do with the fact that the atriums for those vestibules were glass and it would capture a lot of heat. And if I don't know what sort of rubber they made the floor mats out of back in those days, but it's almost like the materials were degrading in the radiation of the sun over the years. I remember walking through on the last visit, and I was testing out my brand new digital camera, which is where all of this footage came from. And it was just so empty, and there were no stores left, and everything was shut down. And it was literally closed within 2 weeks of all of this footage. I remember in the early days of the mall, there was like a game arcade on the bottom floor. There was also like a Hickory Smoke Farms or a Hickory Farms type of shop that sold smoked meats, and they actually had slices of summer sausage. And the smell of that stuff was just incredible. It floated down the whole corridor on the bottom floor, and we would get one of those and eat summer sausage while we were sitting down watching the little fountains and counting coins and throwing coins into the fountains. Large sculptures in the mall always reminded me of giant cookie cutters. There were a lot more fountains and open areas in the mall that they had to sort of cover up because they just presented a danger to all the people that gathered. But I remember they did so many performances in the gathering area and performance areas of the lower level of the mall. A lot of natural exterior elements implemented within the design of the interior. A lot of bringing the outdoors in, a lot of trees, like you're walking on a plaza or a streetscape next to storefronts, shopping. And it must have been 1987, my aunt brought me and maybe my brother too here to Bannister Mall. There was a movie theater in the mall. I remember the smell of the popcorn and the look of the colors of the carpet and the the 80s designs. I remember watching the back of a kid's shirt who was standing in front of us. It was nighttime and it was dark, and so it had that like interior theater look with the lights and stuff. We were in line for popcorn or something, and they had this really stylistic 80s look to a baseball shirt they were wearing, and the number on the back had like 3 lines that made up the number. It was just really straight out of the 80s, clearly. But we were watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So that's where I first saw that movie.
It's like
I was
totally
probably
going back in time.
5 years old. The style of Bannister Mall, it was almost like it was trying to bring an outdoor plaza indoors. Almost like a high-end exterior park feel that was transplanted indoors and reinterpreted with 80s postmodernism in mind. It applied a lot of geometrical aspects. A lot of natural materials too, like the color of the brick and the tile, and the wood patterns. And also the use of the glass brought in a lot of transparency. You almost feel it's just like you are looking through waterfalls. You're out in a lush, natural area, but it's all brought inside and translated into a retail environment. The stairs always creeped me out at Bannister Mall because you could see right through them. They didn't have risers, and this place is littered with what would be today code violations. You know, you trip on the stairs, but you could see right through the stairs. As a kid, those were huge, and it was scary. That, along with the glass railings, you could see right through. That was pretty freaky. Speaking of geometric features of Bannister Mall in the 1980s design style, some of the escalators in some of the anchor stores, I know there was one that had an amazing light display above the escalator. There were mirrors on all of the walls, and it was dark. And in the middle, they had neon fluorescent lights at all angles, maybe like 4 feet long, and they were just like sprinkles on the top of a cupcake, but they all glowed in every color, and they were hung at different levels. And as a kid, I just thought that was the most striking light display and innovative dynamic light fixture that I had ever seen. It was just amazing. You could tell that crime rate was a significant deal. Bars on everything, broken glass everywhere, and there was that feeling of, well, I've stayed too long and it's time to go.
Okay.
It's sad that the mall had to close and the area turned into like the situation that it did with blight and just flight elsewhere. But such is the nature of development sometimes in certain areas. And now Cerner occupies the site, and there's a lot on the horizon there. So there's new life in that site. This was more than just a mall. This was the backdrop for a lot of memories for a lot of people. This was where a lot of people grew up. They got together with their friends and their family here, and a lot of traditions took place here. So it's sad, but at the same time, at least there's new possibilities for the site.